The stars looked different from this part of space. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the view screen. After 6 months of travel, their ship had entered an unknown region. The navigation systems had failed 3 days ago, sending them off their planned route to the Centauri colonies. "Captain, we're picking up a signal," said Officer Jiho, her fingers moving quickly across her control panel. "It's unlike anything in our database," Minho frowned. "Are we being scanned?" "I believe so, sir. The signal is wrapping around our hull. It's reading us." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. First contact. Humanity had met other species before, but those meetings had been carefully planned with years of preparation and diplomatic training. This was different. They were colonists, families with children, farmers, teachers, and engineers, not trained diplomats. "Should we run?" asked Jiho, her voice barely above a whisper. Minho shook his head. "Our engines are at 30%. We wouldn't get far." He straightened his uniform. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Minho of the Earth colony ship New Horizon. We come in peace. Our navigation systems have failed, bringing us into your space by accident. We seek assistance and mean no harm." The view screen remained empty for long seconds. Then it flickered and the bridge crew gasped. The face that appeared wasn't human. It wasn't even humanoid. A massive scaled head filled the screen, with golden eyes that seemed to glow from within. The creature had a long snout and horns that curved back from its head. Its scales shimmered with an iridescent quality that made them appear to change color as it moved. "A dragon," whispered someone behind Minho. The creature spoke, its voice deep and rumbling. "I am Elder Taehyun of the Draconian Sovereignty. You have entered restricted space. Humans are not permitted here by order of the Galactic Council." Minho swallowed hard. "Elder Taehyun, we apologize for our intrusion. As I explained, our navigation systems failed. We are a colony ship carrying families to the Centauri system." The dragon's eyes narrowed. "Families? You bring your young into deep space?" "Yes, we are settlers, not explorers or soldiers." The dragon was silent for a moment. "Interesting. The Council's records indicate humans rarely travel with their offspring. This is unexpected." In the residential section of the ship, Suman was trying to get her 3-year-old son Jiho to eat his lunch. The boy was more interested in his toy spaceship, making it fly around his head while making whooshing sounds. "Jiho, please eat your vegetables," Suman said, pushing the plate closer to him. The ship-wide announcement system crackled to life. "Attention all passengers. This is Captain Minho. We have made contact with an alien vessel. Please remain calm and stay in your quarters until further notice." Suman's husband Taehyun entered their small living space, his face pale. "I was just on the observation deck. You won't believe what I saw." "What is it?" Suman asked, pulling Jiho onto her lap protectively. "A ship, but not like any I've ever seen. It's alive, Suman. It looks like a massive dragon with wings and scales. The engineers are saying it's some kind of biomechanical hybrid." Jiho looked up, suddenly interested. "Dragon, like in my stories?" "Yes, little one," Taehyun said, ruffling his son's hair. "But this one is real." Back on the bridge, Captain Minho was negotiating with Elder Taehyun. "We request permission to make repairs to our navigation systems," Minho said. "Once repaired, we will leave your territory immediately." The dragon's expression was hard to read. The last time Draconians encountered humans was 3 centuries ago. The meeting did not end well. "We've changed since then," Minho said. "Humanity has grown. We've joined the Centauri Alliance and learned to live peacefully with other species." "Words," rumbled Taehyun. "Humans are good with words." "Then let us show you with actions," Minho offered. "Allow a small delegation to meet with you. You can judge for yourself if we've changed." The dragon was silent for a long moment. "Very well. I will allow a delegation of 5 to board my vessel. Choose wisely, Captain. This meeting will determine whether your ship is allowed to make repairs or is escorted out of our space immediately." The screen went dark. Minho turned to his first officer. "Contact Ambassador Hyejin. We need her diplomatic skills now more than ever." Ambassador Hyejin had not expected to work during this journey. She had retired from active diplomatic service 2 years ago and was traveling to the colonies to start a new life with her family. When Captain Minho's call came, she was helping her daughter with her studies. "A Draconian," Taehyun repeated, her eyes wide. They're supposed to be nearly extinct. The last confirmed sighting was over a century ago. This one calls himself Elder Taehyun, Minho explained. He says he's part of the Galactic Council and that humans are restricted from this sector. Taehyun nodded slowly. The quarantine. I've heard rumors, but I thought they were just stories. What quarantine? Minho asked. After the Mars-Earth War, some species pushed for humans to be quarantined to our solar system. They believed we were too violent, too unpredictable to join the wider galactic community. She sighed. I need to see the recording of your conversation with him. After watching the exchange, Taehyun sat back in her chair. He's testing us. The delegation needs to show the best of humanity, not just our words, but our hearts. Who should go? Minho asked. Myself, of course. And Dr. Junho, his medical knowledge might be useful. Engineer Yunha to discuss the repairs, Taehyun paused. And I think we should include a family. A family? Is that wise? The elder seemed interested when you mentioned families. Draconians have a strong sense of lineage and family bonds. Showing him that we value the same might help bridge the gap. In the end, they chose Taehyun and Suman, with their son Jiho. The couple were both scientists, Taehyun a botanist and Suman a geologist, which might prove useful. But it was little Jiho who sealed their selection. Children see the world differently, Taehyun explained, without prejudice or fear. The Draconians might appreciate that. The delegation prepared to board the Draconian vessel the next morning. The ship had moved alongside the New Horizon, dwarfing the human vessel. Up close, it truly did resemble a massive dragon, with what appeared to be scales covering its hull and wing-like structures extending from its sides. As they stood in the airlock, Suman knelt beside Jiho. Remember what we talked about? You need to be on your best behavior. Stay close to Daddy and me. Jiho nodded solemnly, his eyes wide with excitement. Will the dragon breathe fire? Taehyun laughed nervously. I certainly hope not, little one. The airlock door opened, revealing a corridor unlike anything they had seen before. The walls seemed to pulse with life, changing colors subtly as they watched. At the end of the corridor stood a massive figure, Elder Taehyun himself. In person, the Draconian was even more impressive than on the view screen. He stood nearly 5 meters tall, his scaled body radiating power and ancient wisdom. His golden eyes studied each member of the delegation carefully. Welcome aboard, he rumbled, his voice vibrating through their bodies. I am Elder Taehyun, last of the ancient Draconians and member of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Taehyun stepped forward and bowed deeply. Elder Taehyun, we are honored by your hospitality. I am Ambassador Taehyun, and these are my colleagues. As Taehyun introduced each member of the delegation, Taehyun's gaze lingered on little Jiho, who was staring up at the dragon with undisguised wonder. A hatchling, Taehyun said, his voice softening slightly. It has been many centuries since I last saw a young one. Jiho tugged on his mother's hand. Mama, he whispered loudly, he's the biggest dragon ever. For the first time, something like amusement flickered in Taehyun's ancient eyes. Come, the dragon said, turning to lead them deeper into the ship. We have much to discuss about your accidental intrusion into our space. As they followed, Ambassador Taehyun felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this unexpected meeting would end peacefully after all. Elder Taehyun led the human delegation through corridors that seemed alive. The walls pulsed with soft light, changing colors as they walked. The humans tried not to stare, but it was hard not to. None of them had ever seen technology like this before. Your ship? Ambassador Taehyun said carefully. It's remarkable. Is it truly biological? Taehyun's long tail swished behind him as he walked. It is both machine and living tissue. My people mastered biointegration 10,000 years ago, when humans were still learning to make fire. Taehyun held Jiho's hand tightly, worried the curious child might wander off. The boy's eyes were wide with wonder, taking in everything around them. The ship feels, Jiho said suddenly. It's happy. Taehyun stopped and turned his massive head toward the child. What did the young one say? Suman looked nervous. I'm sorry if he said something wrong. Children often say strange things. No, Taehyun rumbled. Let the child speak. All eyes turned to Jiho, who didn't seem bothered by the attention. The ship is happy you have visitors, he said simply. It gets lonely. A strange silence fell over the group. Taehyun's golden eyes studied Jiho with new interest. Interesting, he said finally. Very few species can sense the emotional state of draconian vessels. Your child has unusual perception. They continued walking until they reached a large circular room. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars above them. In the center of the room was a table made from what looked like a single piece of crystal. "Please, be seated," Taehyun said, gesturing to chairs that grew up from the floor as he spoke. The humans sat down carefully, still amazed by the living technology around them. Jiho needed help from his father to climb onto his chair, which adjusted itself to his small size. "Now," Taehyun said, settling his massive body across from them, "explain why I should not escort your ship out of draconian space immediately." Ambassador Hyejin took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. Elder Taehyun, as Captain Minho explained, "Our presence here is accidental. Our navigation systems failed, sending us off course. We ask only for time to make repairs before continuing to our destination." "And where is this destination?" Taehyun asked. "The Centauri colonies. We are settlers, not explorers or soldiers. Our ship carries families seeking a new beginning." Taehyun's eyes narrowed. "The Centauri system is in the opposite direction. Your navigation failure must have been severe indeed to bring you so far off course." Dr. Jiho spoke up. "If I may, Elder, our ship encountered an unusual energy field 3 days ago. It disrupted all our systems. We're still trying to understand what happened." "An energy field?" Taehyun seemed surprised. "In this sector?" Engineer Yuna nodded. "Yes, it had a unique signature unlike anything in our databases." Taehyun was quiet for a moment, as if thinking. "This is concerning. Such phenomena should not exist in this region of space." He tapped one clawed finger on the crystal table. "I will need to investigate this." "Does this mean you'll allow us to stay while we make repairs?" Hyejin asked hopefully. "I have not decided," Taehyun said. "First, I must understand more about your people." The last time Draconians encountered humans, the meeting ended poorly. "What happened?" Dohyun asked, then quickly added, "If you don't mind sharing." Taehyun's scales shifted color slightly, darkening around his neck and face. 300 years ago, a human exploration vessel discovered one of our colony worlds. They claimed to come in peace just as you do now. But when they learned of the valuable minerals on the planet, they attacked our settlement. Many Draconians died that day. The humans looked shocked. Hyejin shook her head sadly. "I had no knowledge of this incident. On behalf of humanity, I offer our deepest apologies." "Apologies do not bring back the dead," Taehyun said coldly. "No, they don't," Hyejin agreed. "But humanity has changed since then. We've learned from our mistakes. The Mars-Earth War taught us the cost of violence and greed. It nearly destroyed our species." "Words," rumbled Taehyun. "Always human words." Jiho, who had been quietly drawing on a tablet his mother had given him, suddenly held up his picture. "Look, I drew you." All eyes turned to the child's drawing. It was simple, as all children's drawings are, but recognizable. A big green dragon with golden eyes, surrounded by stars. "You made my scales green," Taehyun observed. "Green is my favorite color," Jiho explained seriously. For a moment, something like amusement flickered in Taehyun's ancient eyes. "I see, and what else do you like, young human?" "I like spaceships and stars and my toy robot and dragons and ice cream," Jiho said in one breath. "Do you like ice cream?" Suman looked mortified. "Jiho, please." Elder Taehyun is busy with important matters, but Taehyun seemed more relaxed than before. "I do not know this ice cream. Is it important to humans?" "It's the best food ever," Jiho declared. "It's cold and sweet and makes you happy." "Food that creates happiness," Taehyun mused. "An interesting concept." Ambassador Hyejin saw an opportunity. "Elder Taehyun, perhaps we could share some of our culture with you while you consider our request. Food, music, art, these things often speak more truly about a people than words alone." Taehyun considered this. "Very well. I will allow your ship to remain in place for 3 of your Earth days. During this time, I will learn more about humans. Then I will decide whether to allow repairs or escort you from our space." "Thank you, Elder," Hyejin said, bowing her head respectfully. "Your generosity is appreciated. Do not thank me yet, Ambassador. I have not made my final decision." Taehyun rose to his full height. "Now I would like to see your ship. Show me how humans live among the stars." The delegation exchanged nervous glances. Having the massive dragon aboard their ship would cause quite a stir. "Of course," Hyejin said. We would be honored to host you aboard the New Horizon. As they prepared to leave, Jiho tugged on his father's sleeve. Can I show Elder Taehyun my room? I have lots of dragon books. Taehyun smiled nervously. We'll see, little one. The elder is very important and might be too busy for that. I would be interested to see these dragon books, Taehyun said unexpectedly. How do humans portray my kind in your stories? They breathe fire and guard treasure, and sometimes they're mean, but sometimes they're nice and help people, Jiho explained excitedly. Fire breathing, Taehyun rumbled. A common misconception, though some of my ancestors could produce chemical reactions that might appear as flame to primitive observers. As they walked back toward the airlock, Taehyun moved closer to Ambassador Hyejin. Your young one, he said quietly. He is unusual. Jiho? He's a bright child but fairly typical for his age, Hyejin replied. No, Taehyun said. He is more than that. He sensed the ship's emotional state. That is rare. Even among species with psychic abilities, Hyejin looked surprised. Humans don't have psychic abilities. Perhaps not most humans, Taehyun said. But that child... Watch him carefully. Before Hyejin could ask what he meant, they reached the airlock. The door opened to reveal Captain Minho waiting nervously on the other side. Elder Taehyun, Minho said, bowing deeply. Welcome aboard the New Horizon. Taehyun had to duck his massive head to enter the human ship. The corridors, designed for human proportions, made him look even larger. Crew members pressed themselves against walls as he passed, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Your vessel is compact, Taehyun observed. We make efficient use of space, Minho explained. The ship carries 2,000 colonists plus crew. 2,000? Taehyun seemed surprised. So many in such a small vessel. As they toured the ship, Taehyun saw the hydroponics bay where they grew food, the medical facilities, and the education center where children learned. He watched humans going about their daily lives, working together, caring for each other. You live simply, he noted. We have what we need, Hyejin said. Our goal is to build new homes on Centauri Prime, not to accumulate wealth or power. When they reached the residential section, Jiho could no longer contain his excitement. Now can I show him my room, please? Sumin looked to Hyejin, who nodded slightly. If Elder Taehyun is interested, I am, the dragon said. Lead on, young human. Jiho's room was small but filled with colorful drawings, toys, and books. He proudly showed Taehyun his collection of dragon stories, explaining each one with the earnest seriousness only a child can manage. This one's my favorite, Jiho said, holding up a book with a friendly-looking dragon on the cover. The dragon starts out scary, but then he makes friends with a boy and they go on adventures together. Taehyun studied the book with genuine interest. Friendship between dragons and humans, a pleasant fiction. It doesn't have to be fiction, Jiho said, looking up at the massive dragon without a trace of fear. We could be friends. For the first time since they had met him, Elder Taehyun seemed at a loss for words. He looked at the small human child offering friendship as easily as breathing, and something shifted in his ancient eyes. Perhaps, he said finally, his voice softer than before. Perhaps we could. The next morning, preparations were underway for a cultural exchange. Captain Minho had arranged for a small feast featuring earth foods, music performances, and art displays. The crew was excited but nervous. Everything depended on impressing Elder Taehyun. In their quarters, Sumin helped Jiho get dressed in his best clothes, a small blue suit that he usually complained about wearing. Do I have to wear this? Jiho asked, tugging at the collar. It's itchy. Yes, sweetheart, Sumin said patiently. Today is very important. Elder Taehyun is coming to learn about humans, and we need to look our best. Will he bring his ship? Jiho asked, suddenly interested. The one that feels things? Sumin paused, remembering what Taehyun had said about Jiho sensing the ship's emotions. No, honey, he'll come by himself. Taehyun entered the room, adjusting his own formal wear. Are my two favorite people ready? The event starts in 30 minutes. Almost, Sumin said. Can you help with his hair? It won't stay down. As Taehyun tried to tame Jiho's unruly hair, Ambassador Hyejin called on their room communicator. Are you ready? Elder Taehyun has just boarded the ship. We'll be right there, Taehyun assured her. The family made their way to the ship's main gathering hall, which had been transformed for the occasion. Tables lined the walls, filled with foods from Earth, fruits, breads, cheeses, and yes, ice cream. A small stage had been set up where crew members would perform music and dance. Artwork created by the colonists decorated the walls. Elder Taehyun entered the hall, and everyone fell silent. The massive dragon seemed even larger in the enclosed space. Captain Minho stepped forward to greet him. Elder Taehyun, welcome to our cultural exchange. We hope to share the best of humanity with you today. Taehyun nodded his great head. I look forward to learning more about your species, Captain. The event began with music. A small group played traditional instruments from various Earth cultures. Taehyun listened carefully, his head tilted slightly. The vibrations are pleasing, he commented when they finished. Draconians also create music, though ours is felt more than heard. Next came the food. Taehyun was curious about everything, though his biology meant he could only safely taste a few items. This bread, he said, holding a small piece carefully between two claws. It is made from plants? Yes, explained Chef Junho. Wheat mainly. It's a staple food for many humans. When it was time for the ice cream, Jiho could barely contain his excitement. You have to try it, he told Taehyun. It's the best thing ever. The dragon carefully accepted a small bowl of vanilla ice cream. The humans watched nervously as he tasted it. Cold, Taehyun observed. And sweet, as the young one said. Interesting texture. Do you like it? Jiho asked eagerly. It is. Pleasant, Taehyun admitted, though strange to eat food at such a low temperature. As the event continued, Jiho grew restless. The formal atmosphere and adult conversations were boring for a 3-year-old. He fidgeted in his chair, looking around for something more interesting. That's when he noticed a small maintenance robot entering the hall through a side door. It was one of the ship's cleaning bots, a round little machine that moved quietly along the floor, picking up any trash. Jiho had always been fascinated by the robots. While the adults were distracted by a dance performance, Jiho slipped from his chair and followed the robot as it left the hall. No one noticed him leave. All eyes were on the dancers and Elder Taehyun's reaction. The maintenance robot moved down the corridor, with Jiho following close behind. It turned a corner, then entered a small maintenance tunnel, a shortcut between sections of the ship that the robots used to avoid busy corridors. Jiho hesitated only a moment before crawling in after it. The tunnel was small, perfect for a child his size. It was like an adventure from one of his books. Back in the gathering hall, the dance performance ended to polite applause. Suman turned to check on Jiho and felt her heart stop. Taehyun, she whispered urgently. Where's Jiho? Taehyun looked at the empty chair where their son had been sitting. He was just here a minute ago. They both stood up, looking around the hall. There was no sign of the boy. Maybe he went to the bathroom? Taehyun suggested, trying to stay calm. He would have told us, Suman said, her voice rising with worry. He knows not to wander off. Their conversation caught Ambassador Hyejin's attention. Is something wrong? She asked quietly. Jiho's missing, Suman said, now visibly panicked. He was sitting right here and now he's gone. Captain Minho overheard and immediately moved to their side. When did you last see him? During the music performance, Taehyun said. He was getting restless, but I didn't think. Elder Taehyun's keen hearing picked up their worried conversation. The young one is missing? He asked, his deep voice cutting through the hall. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the worried parents and the now alert dragon. Yes, Captain Minho admitted. It seems Jiho has wandered off. I'm sure he's still on the ship somewhere. Taehyun's golden eyes narrowed. Your ship has many dangerous areas for a small child. Engineering sections, airlocks, power systems. Suman paled at his words. The ship was indeed full of places that could be dangerous for a curious 3-year-old. We need to find him now, Captain Minho said firmly. He tapped his communicator. Security, this is the captain. We have a missing child, Jiho, age 3. Begin ship-wide search immediately. Check all security feeds. Elder Taehyun rose to his full height. I will assist in the search. My senses are more acute than yours. Meanwhile, Jiho was having an adventure. The maintenance tunnel had led him to a part of the ship he'd never seen before. The walls here were covered with blinking lights and humming equipment. It was the main engineering section, where the ship's engines and power systems were controlled. The maintenance robot continued its programmed cleaning route, unaware of its small follower. Jiho was amazed by all the new sights and sounds. He wandered among the massive machines, touching buttons and panels that lit up under his fingers. "Wow," he whispered to himself. "It's like a spaceship inside a spaceship." The engineering crew was minimal today, with most attending the cultural exchange. The few engineers on duty were focused on their work and didn't notice the small boy exploring their domain. Jiho found a particularly interesting panel with colorful buttons. When he pressed a green one, a small compartment opened in the wall. Inside was a toolkit used for emergency repairs. Jiho picked up a shiny wrench, fascinated by its weight and feel. "I'm a space engineer," he said to himself, mimicking the serious expression he'd seen on the ship's engineers. Back in the main sections of the ship, the search for Jiho was growing more urgent. Security teams checked every corridor and room. The ship's computer scanned security footage, trying to track the boy's movements. "I found something," reported Security Officer Jiwoo. "Camera 34 caught him following a maintenance robot about 20 minutes ago." The footage showed Jiho disappearing into a maintenance tunnel. "Where does that tunnel lead?" Suman asked, her voice shaking. Officer Jiwoo checked the ship's schematics. "It connects to several areas, including—" "Oh no." "What?" Taehyun demanded. "The main engineering section," Jiwoo said grimly. "And from there, he could access the engine room or the power core." Captain Minho immediately contacted the engineering team. "This is the captain. We have a 3-year-old child loose in your section. Find him immediately." Elder Taehyun had been listening carefully. "Take me to this engineering section," he commanded. "My sense of smell may help locate the child." "I'm coming too," Suman insisted, with Taehyun nodding beside her. They rushed to engineering, fear driving them forward. When they arrived, the engineering team was already searching every corner of the large space. "Any sign of him?" Captain Minho asked the chief engineer. "Not yet, sir. We're checking everywhere." Elder Taehyun closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. His nostrils flared as he sorted through the many scents of the ship: metal, oil, electricity, and humans. Then he caught something: the distinct scent of the young human child. "This way," he said, moving with surprising grace for his size. He led them toward a section of the engine room where the warp drive was housed. The warp drive was the most dangerous part of the ship, a powerful system that bent space to allow faster-than-light travel. It was currently offline for repairs but still contained enormous energy. "He's in there," Taehyun said, pointing to a small access hatch. The chief engineer looked alarmed. "That leads to the warp field stabilizers. If he touches the wrong thing—" Suman covered her mouth in horror. Taehyun put his arm around her, trying to stay strong. "I can smell his fear," Taehyun said suddenly. "He knows he's lost." Inside the warp drive chamber, Jiho had indeed realized he was in trouble. The adventure had stopped being fun when he couldn't find his way back. The maintenance robot was long gone, and he was alone in a strange, scary place with humming machines all around him. "Mama," he called out, his voice small in the large chamber. "Daddy." Tears welled up in his eyes as he clutched the wrench he'd taken from the toolkit. He sat down on the floor and began to cry. Outside the access hatch, they could now hear his faint sobs. "Jiho," Suman called. "Sweetheart, we're here." "Mama?" His voice was muffled but clear. "The hatch is too small for an adult," the chief engineer said. Elder Taehyun studied the access hatch. "It is also too small for me." He turned to Captain Minho. "Can you shut down the warp systems completely? Make it safe for the child?" "We can try," the chief engineer said, "but it will take time. Some systems are already in mid-shutdown for repairs." "We don't have time," Taehyun said firmly. "I can sense the energy fluctuations. They're growing unstable." Suman looked at the dragon with terror in her eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means," Taehyun said gravely, "that your son is in immediate danger. We need to get him out now." Elder Taehyun said, his voice urgent but controlled. The warp field stabilizers are becoming unstable. The chief engineer's face went pale. If those stabilizers fail completely, the residual energy could create a localized implosion. What does that mean? Taehyun asked, his voice shaking. It means the chamber could collapse in on itself, Captain Minho explained grimly. With Jiho inside, Suman pressed her hands against the access hatch. Jiho, can you come to the door, sweetheart? Follow Mommy's voice. Inside the chamber, Jiho heard his mother's voice and stood up, wiping tears from his face. Mama, I'm scared. I know, baby. Just come toward my voice. Can you see a small door with light coming through? Jiho looked around the dim chamber. Yes, I see it. Good boy. Come to the door, slowly and carefully. The boy started walking toward the hatch, but suddenly stopped. The floor beneath him had begun to vibrate strangely. Blue lights flickered around the edges of the chamber, growing brighter. Mama, the room is getting all glowy, Jiho called, his voice trembling. The chief engineer checked his readings and shook his head. The field is destabilizing faster than I thought. We have minutes, maybe less. Can we cut through the wall? Taehyun suggested desperately. Not in time, the engineer replied. And cutting might trigger the implosion immediately. Elder Taehyun had been silent, his ancient eyes focused on the problem. Now he spoke. There is another way. My ship? Your ship? Captain Minho asked, confused. My vessel is biomechanical. It can extend parts of itself, create new pathways. Taehyun turned his massive head toward Suman and Dohyun. I can command it to create a safe passage from here to the chamber, extract the child and return him safely. But your ship is docked at the main airlock, Ambassador Hyejin said. That's 3 decks away. Distance is not an obstacle, Taehyun said. My ship can extend filaments through your vessel's structure without damaging it. Like roots growing through soil. The humans exchanged uncertain glances. The idea of an alien ship growing through their walls was unsettling. But the alternative was unthinkable. Do it, Captain Minho said firmly. Elder Taehyun closed his eyes and became very still. The humans watched in tense silence, hearing only Jiho's occasional frightened calls from inside the chamber. After a moment, Taehyun opened his eyes. It has begun. Do not be alarmed by what you see. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a small section of the wall near the access hatch began to shimmer. The metal appeared to soften, becoming almost liquid. Through this softened area emerged something that looked like a thin, silvery vine. The vine grew rapidly, extending toward the access hatch. When it reached the small door, it paused as if sensing the barrier. Open the hatch, Taehyun instructed. The chief engineer quickly unlocked the hatch and pulled it open as far as it would go. The silvery vine immediately slipped through the opening and into the chamber. Inside, Jiho watched with wide eyes as the strange silver thing entered the room. It moved like it was alive, turning toward him as if it could see him. Mama? He called uncertainly. It's okay, Jiho, Suman called back. That's going to help you. Don't be afraid. The vine continued to grow, thickening as it extended further into the chamber. It moved toward Jiho slowly, as if trying not to frighten him. It looks like a silver snake, Jiho said, his fear giving way to curiosity. The blue glow in the chamber was getting brighter. The floor vibrated more strongly, and small tools and parts began to float upward as the gravity field fluctuated. The field is collapsing, the chief engineer warned. 30 seconds, maybe less. The silver vine reached Jiho and gently wrapped around his waist. The boy gasped in surprise but didn't struggle. It's warm, he exclaimed. Hold still, young one, Elder Taehyun called. It will bring you to safety. The vine began to retract, pulling Jiho toward the hatch. But as it did, the blue glow in the chamber suddenly flared brightly. The vibrations became violent shaking. It's happening now, the chief engineer shouted. Everyone back. The silver vine yanked Jiho forward with surprising speed, pulling him through the hatch just as a loud cracking sound came from inside the chamber. The hatch slammed shut behind him, the metal warping and sealing itself as the implosion began. Suman grabbed Jiho from the vine's gentle grip and held him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Taehyun wrapped his arms around both of them, his body shaking with relief. Thank you, he said to Elder Taehyun, his voice breaking. Thank you for saving our son. Taehyun nodded his great head. The young one is brave. He did not panic when my ship reached for him. Jiho looked up from his mother's embrace. The silver snake was your ship? Yes, Taehyun explained. My ship can extend parts of itself when needed. Cool, Jiho said, his earlier fear apparently forgotten. Can it do other stuff too? Despite the tension of the moment, several of the humans smiled at the boy's resilience. Children could bounce back from fear so quickly. Perhaps I will show you someday, Taehyun said. But now I believe your parents wish to take you somewhere safe. Captain Minho stepped forward. We should all leave this area. The implosion was contained, but there could be secondary effects. As they walked away from engineering, Suman carried Jiho, refusing to let him go. The boy rested his head on her shoulder, suddenly tired after his adventure. You gave us quite a scare, Ambassador Hyejin told him gently. Why did you wander off like that? I followed the robot, Jiho explained sleepily. It was going somewhere important. Next time, tell an adult before you follow robots, Taehyun said, trying to sound stern but mostly sounding relieved. Elder Taehyun walked beside them, his massive form dwarfing the humans. The young one has a curious spirit. That is valuable, though sometimes dangerous. They reached the residential section of the ship, and Suman announced that Jiho needed rest after his ordeal. The others agreed, and plans were made to continue discussions later. I will return to my vessel for now, Taehyun said. There are matters I must attend to. Of course, Captain Minho said. And thank you again for your help. Without you, we might have lost Jiho. Taehyun inclined his head slightly. It was the right thing to do. As the dragon turned to leave, Jiho called out from his mother's arms. Wait, can I see your ship again? The real you, not just the silver snake part? Taehyun paused. You wish to visit my vessel? Yeah. I want to see where you live. Suman looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, Elder, he's overtired and doesn't understand. No, Taehyun interrupted. The request is reasonable. The young one showed courage today. He turned his golden eyes to Jiho. You may visit my sanctuary if your parents permit it. Jiho looked at his parents with pleading eyes. Can I, please? Taehyun and Suman exchanged uncertain glances. After what had just happened, letting Jiho out of their sight seemed unthinkable. But refusing Elder Taehyun's invitation might be seen as an insult. Ambassador Hyejin sensed their dilemma. Perhaps we could all visit, she suggested diplomatically. A small group later today after Jiho has rested. Taehyun considered this. Very well. A small group may come. The young one and his parents, you, Ambassador, and Captain Minho if he wishes. I would be honored, Captain Minho said. With that settled, Taehyun continued on his way to the airlock. The humans watched him go, still somewhat in awe of the ancient being who had saved Jiho's life. In their quarters, Suman tucked an exhausted Jiho into bed. The boy was fighting sleep, his mind still racing from the day's events. Is Elder Taehyun really the last dragon? He asked as his eyes grew heavy. The last of his kind, yes, Suman said softly. That's what he told us. That's sad, Jiho murmured. Everyone should have a family. Suman stroked his hair. Sleep now, little one. You've had quite an adventure today. Jiho agreed, his eyes finally closing. The dragon saved me with his magic ship. Within moments, he was asleep. Suman joined Taehyun in the small living area of their quarters, collapsing onto the couch beside him. I've never been so scared, she whispered. When I thought we might lose him, Taehyun put his arm around her. But we didn't. He's safe thanks to Elder Taehyun. It's strange, Suman said thoughtfully. When we first met him, Taehyun seemed so cold, so suspicious of humans. But he didn't hesitate to save Jiho. Children have a way of bringing out the best in everyone, Taehyun said. Even ancient dragon aliens, apparently. Later that day, after Jiho had rested, the small group prepared to visit Elder Taehyun's vessel. Jiho was buzzing with excitement, all traces of his earlier fear gone. Do you think his ship will talk to me again? He asked as they walked toward the airlock. It felt happy when it saved me. Ambassador Hyejin looked at him curiously. You really can sense the ship's feelings, can't you? Jiho nodded. It's like hearing, but not with my ears. More like, he tapped his chest. In here. Captain Minho exchanged a meaningful glance with Hyejin. There were stories of humans with unusual empathic abilities, but they were rare and often dismissed as myths. Could Jiho actually be sensing the biomechanical ship's emotional state? They reached the airlock where Taehyun's vessel was docked. The massive ship looked even more impressive up close, its hull shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and change as they watched. It's happy again, Jiho announced confidently. It knows we're coming to visit. The airlock door opened, revealing Elder Taehyun waiting for them. Welcome, he said, his deep voice resonating in the small space. The young one is correct. My vessel is pleased to have visitors. As they stepped aboard the draconian ship, the humans felt a sense of wonder. They were about to see something few humans ever had, the private sanctuary of one of the most ancient beings in the galaxy. Elder Taehyun led the small group of humans through corridors that seemed to breathe. The walls pulsed with soft light, changing colors as they passed. Jiho walked between his parents, holding their hands but constantly looking around with wide, excited eyes. Your ship is beautiful, Ambassador Heejin said, genuinely impressed by the living technology surrounding them. It has been my home for over 5 centuries, Taehyun replied. The last of the great draconian vessels. Does it have a name? Captain Minho asked. Taehyun made a sound that was almost like a chuckle. Its name would be unpronounceable in your language. The closest translation might be Memory of Stars. Memory of Stars, Jiho repeated, testing the name. It likes that name. Taehyun looked down at the boy with interest. You continue to sense my ship's feelings, most unusual for a human. They walked deeper into the vessel, passing rooms filled with strange objects and technology the humans couldn't begin to understand. Finally, they reached a large circular door that opened as Taehyun approached. This is my sanctuary, the dragon explained. Few non-draconians have ever entered this space. The door opened to reveal a breathtaking sight. It was an enormous dome, at least 50 meters across, filled with plants from 1,000 worlds. Trees with silver leaves reached toward a ceiling that somehow showed the stars outside, despite being deep within the ship. Flowers in colors the humans had never seen before bloomed along winding paths. Small creatures that looked like glowing butterflies flitted between the plants. It's like a garden, Suman whispered in awe. A garden of the galaxy. Yes, Taehyun said. I have collected specimens from every world I have visited over the centuries. Some of these plants are the last of their kind, from worlds that no longer exist. Jiho let go of his parents' hands and stepped forward, drawn to the beauty around him. Can I look closer? He asked. Taehyun nodded. You may explore the paths, young one, but do not touch the plants without asking. Some have defenses. I'll be careful, Jiho promised solemnly. As Jiho began to explore, staying within sight of the adults, Taehyun led the others to a small clearing with seats that grew from the floor. The seats adjusted themselves to human anatomy as they sat down. This is remarkable, Captain Minho said, looking around. A piece of living history. Indeed, Taehyun agreed. When my kind was numerous, each of our ships contained such gardens. We believed in preserving life in all its forms. His voice took on a sad tone. Now I alone maintain this tradition. What happened to your people? Heejin asked gently. If you don't mind my asking. Taehyun was quiet for a moment. A combination of factors. A devastating war with another ancient race, a decline in birth rates, and perhaps most significantly, a loss of purpose. He looked around the garden. We were once guardians of life throughout this sector of the galaxy. When younger races rose to power, many of my kind felt our time had passed. But you remained, Dohyun observed. I remained, Taehyun confirmed. Someone had to remember. Someone had to continue our work. As they talked, Jiho wandered the paths of the garden, amazed by everything he saw. The plants seemed to respond to his presence, some turning toward him as if curious. The glowing butterfly creatures followed him, landing briefly on his shoulders before fluttering away. In the center of the garden, Jiho found a small pool of water so clear it looked like liquid crystal. Beside the pool was a stone bench where Elder Taehyun clearly spent time in contemplation. Jiho sat on the bench, his legs dangling, and watched the strange fish-like creatures swimming in the pool. After a while, he felt a presence behind him. Turning, he saw Elder Taehyun standing there, watching him. Do you like my garden, young one? The dragon asked. Jiho nodded enthusiastically. It's the best place ever. Even better than the playground on the ship. Taehyun made that sound again, the one that might have been a chuckle. High praise indeed. The dragon moved to the bench and settled his massive body beside Jiho. For a few minutes, they sat in companionable silence, watching the creatures in the pool. Elder Taehyun? Jiho finally asked. Yes, young one? Are you really all alone? The last dragon ever? Taehyun's golden eyes seemed to dim slightly. I am the last of the ancient draconians, yes. There are distant cousins of my kind on other worlds, but they have evolved differently. None remember the old ways. That's really sad, Jiho said with the simple honesty of a child. Everyone should have a family. I had a family once, Taehyun said softly. Long ago. What happened to them? Time, young one. Time happened. My kind lived for many centuries, but even we were not immortal. Jiho thought about this. So you're like, really, really old. By human standards, yes. I am very old. Older than my grandpa? He's super old. He's 62. This time Taehyun definitely chuckled. Yes, considerably older than your grandfather. Jiho swung his legs back and forth, thinking. Do you get lonely? Being the last one? The question seemed to catch Taehyun by surprise. He was silent for a long moment before answering. Yes, he admitted finally. I do get lonely. You could come live with us, Jiho suggested brightly. On the new planet. I could show you all my toys and you could tell me dragon stories. Taehyun looked down at the small human child, this tiny being who offered friendship so easily, without fear or agenda. In 3 centuries of dealing with the Galactic Council, no one had ever simply offered him companionship. That is a kind offer, he said, his voice gentler than Jiho had heard before. But I have duties that keep me here. What kind of duties? I represent my people on the Galactic Council. I maintain this garden, preserving species that might otherwise be lost. And I watch over this sector of space as my ancestors did before me. That sounds important, Jiho agreed, but also kind of boring sometimes. Taehyun made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yes, at times it can be boring. From across the garden, the adults watched this unusual conversation with amazement. They couldn't hear the words, but they could see the massive dragon and tiny human child sitting together like old friends. I've never seen anything like it, Ambassador Hyejin whispered. Elder Taehyun has a reputation for being cold and distant with everyone, even other council members. Children see the world differently, Suman said, without prejudice or fear. As they watched, Jiho stood up on the bench, bringing him closer to eye level with the seated dragon. Without hesitation, the boy reached out and placed his small hand on Taehyun's nose. The adults gasped. Such familiarity with an ancient being like Taehyun was unheard of. Would he be offended? But Taehyun remained perfectly still, allowing the contact. Jiho patted the dragon's scaled nose gently. Your scales are warm, the boy observed. And bumpy. But nice bumpy. Thank you, Taehyun replied, sounding almost amused. Your skin is smooth. And fragile. That's why Mom makes me wear sunscreen, Jiho explained seriously. So I don't get burned. Then, to everyone's astonishment, Elder Taehyun did something none of them had ever seen before. He lowered his massive head in a formal bow to the small human child. The adults froze in shock. In diplomatic circles, it was well known that Elder Taehyun never bowed to anyone. As the last of his kind and one of the oldest beings in the Galactic Council, he was afforded the respect of never having to lower his head first. Yet here he was, bowing to a 3-year-old human child, Jiho. Not understanding the significance, simply patted Taehyun's head. Your horns are cool, he said admiringly. Taehyun raised his head again, and if dragons could smile, he might have been smiling. You are an unusual human, Jiho. That's what my mom says too, Jiho agreed. She says I march to my own drummer. I don't have a drummer, though. The adults approached slowly, not wanting to interrupt the moment but feeling they should be closer to this historic interaction. Elder Taehyun, Ambassador Hyejin said carefully. We are honored by your gesture. Taehyun turned his golden eyes to her. In 3 centuries, he said, no being has approached me without fear or agenda. None have touched me without permission. His gaze returned to Jiho. Your child sees only what is, not what he's been told to see. Captain Minho stepped forward. Elder, about our ship's repairs. You may stay as long as needed to complete your repairs, Taehyun said, surprising them all. Furthermore, I will provide technical assistance. My ship's databases may help you understand the energy field that disrupted your systems. Thank you, Captain Minho said, clearly shocked by this sudden generosity. That's extremely kind. And, Taehyun continued, I will speak to the Galactic Council about reconsidering the human quarantine. Perhaps it is time for a new assessment. Ambassador Hyejin could hardly believe what she was hearing. Elder, that would be revolutionary. The quarantine has stood for centuries. Yes, Taehyun agreed. And perhaps that is too long. If your young can teach my old heart something new, there may be hope for cooperation after all. Jiho, oblivious to the historic nature of the moment, tugged on Taehyun's claw. Can you show me more of your garden now? I want to see everything. Taehyun looked down at the eager child and did something else the humans had never seen before. He laughed, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the garden. Yes, young one, he said. I will show you everything. As they walked back to the airlock, Sumin held Jiho's hand tightly. You made a very special friend today, she told him. Jiho nodded sleepily, tired from the day's adventures. Elder Taehyun is nice. He just needed someone to touch his nose. The adults exchanged smiles over his head. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Behind them, Elder Taehyun watched them go, feeling something he hadn't felt in centuries. Hope. Perhaps there was a place for him in this changing galaxy after all. Perhaps the future held more than just memories and duty. And it had all begun because a human toddler touched a dragon's nose and made him bow for the first time in centuries.